The 2016 grad class is often looked at as weak and fairly unproductive. Headliners Jason Groom and Riley Pint would both fail to meet expectations. However, we would get Bo Bichette, Gavin Lux, and Braxton Garrett out of this class. With that said, you may be wondering, what about the third-ranked prospect? The third best high school player in the nation? That title belonged to Blake Rutherford, and well, it's been 8 years and he no longer plays for an MLB or MILB team. What happened? Blake Rutherford was a 6'2", 190-pound center fielder out of West Hills, California, where he played for Chaminade Prep. In terms of being a top-ranked prospect, he checked all the boxes. Physically, he was a pure athlete, showing quick twitch movements on the base path and pure raw power at the plate. His left-handed stroke was smooth and produced a high average, featuring hard-hit balls to all fields. Defensively, he was above average with great IQ backed with a near-plus arm. What may have been most impressive was his mental makeup. Due to his older brother Cole being a prospect for the Padres, Blake already knew what it took to become a professional athlete. He had eyes on him since he was in 8th grade, and would commit to UCLA before the end of his freshman year. When asked about his favorite player, he would answer Derek Jeter, claiming, "He taught me to respect who came before me, run every ball out, and compete to win and have fun. I dreamed to be anywhere close to what he was, not only on the field, but especially off." All of these traits earned him the 3rd overall national ranking and had scouts buzzing. Some scouting services, like Perfect Game, would even claim he had superstar potential. However, most scouts viewed him as a potential high-average guy at the MLB level with above-average power, adding on that a move to right field was very likely and he'd profile better at that position. Blake would finish his senior year with a decorated resume, posting a .435 average as a junior and .577 average as a senior. For Team USA, he would help lead him to a gold medal in the 2015 WBSC with a .345 tournament average, and he would be the runner-up for the Gatorade Player of the Year for California. Heading into the 2016 MLB Draft, Rutherford would rank as the 8th best prospect available by MLB.com and would appear in most mock draft top 10s. However, due to signability issues, Blake would actually fall to the Yankees at the 18 spot, where they would end up paying $840,000 over slot value to sign him. Looking back at this may have actually been somewhat planned, as it's not uncommon for an organization to go over slot to get their main target. I wouldn't be shocked if Blake and New York agreed upon the amount pre-draft, which made other teams pass on him draft day. This is all alleged, but his favorite player was the face of the Yankees for many years, so it would make sense. Following the draft, Rutherford would be sent to rookie ball to finish the year out, and boy did he impress. He had finished 2016 with a .351 average, .570 slug, and .986 OPS. 2017 would initially be another successful year for Blake. He'd start the year out with single-A Charleston, slashing a .281 average over 71 games. This continued success led to an increase in trade value that the Yankees would take advantage of, unfortunately. On July 19th, New York would include Rutherford in a multiplayer trade to the White Sox. Clearly, this must have been quite shocking for Blake, as he had always wanted to play for the Yanks. And now, his dream team had just traded him away before he could even finish a full season of pro ball. Unfortunately, this change of scenery and minor injuries would hamper the rest of his 2017 season with the White Sox. He'd finished the year hitting .213 with a .254 slugging percentage over 30 games with Kannapolis. This poor finish to the season would result in him dropping out of the top 50 MLB prospects list, and would create an outline of what needed to be improved going forward. You see, Blake had more than enough strength and bat speed to produce home run-worthy exit velos, but his launch angle and plate approach were preventing him from leaving the park at an acceptable rate. To combat this, the White Sox placed him in an instructional league over winter, with the main focuses being attacking the ball out front and adding more loft to his swing. While this power-focused offseason did seem to help, most media and evaluators claimed they were still quite underwhelmed with the result. Rutherford would finish the year with a .293 average, slugging .436, putting out 7 long balls for high-A Winston-Salem. The White Sox would reward this progress with inviting him to spring training in January 2019. They would also promote him to Double-A Birmingham for the regular season. Now, most prospects struggle to find their footing or get in the groove immediately after being promoted. After all, the competition has gotten better, but Blake would seemingly digress in every aspect of his game at the plate. His batting average dipped to .265, his slugging dropped to .365, and his OPS dropped nearly 100 points. On the bases, he stole 9 bags, 6 short of the year prior. Technically, he did match his home run total with a whopping 7, but that came at an expense. You see, almost all Blake's power came from hard pulling balls to right field, and when you try to pull balls in the outer half of the plate, you tend to generate a lot of weak contact. Well, that's exactly what happened to him. A high percentage of Rutherford's at-bats in 2019 resulted in weak ground balls and easy outs. In an effort to build confidence and incorporate more lower half in his swing, the White Sox would send Blake to Glendale for the Arizona Fall League. Unfortunately, this would prove to be somewhat of a disaster, as he would finish fall season slashing just 179. To be fair, I must mention Rutherford was apparently dealing with some troubling off-field issues throughout the 2019 season, and the club was fairly happy with how he bounced back to close the regular season. Heading into 2020, Blake had fallen off the radar for many of us. Sure, White Sox superfans were probably still keeping an eye on him, but for most of us in the prospect-based media, he had become a forgotten prospect. The lack of in-game production, average defensive ability, declining on-base ability, and below-average arm had many of us write him off. However, Rutherford would appear at spring training looking a lot different, reportedly adding 12 pounds of muscle to his frame over the past offseason. Now, let me just say, adding 12 pounds of pure muscle tissue over the course of 6 months is nearly impossible even with the use of PEDs. I am by no means saying Blake used illegal substances to gain muscle over the 2019 offseason. I truly don't believe he did, to be honest with you. It's just quite comedic when you see these heavily exaggerated muscle gain claims by athletes, when in reality they probably packed on less than half that weight in lean muscle tissue. Anyways, Rutherford would sadly never get to utilize his newfound strength in 2020 as the minor league season would be cancelled, so we must move forward to 2021. It became no secret that the White Sox desperately needed more outfield depth this year, and were looking for a potential call-up of their minor league prospects. With this in mind, Chicago would call up Blake to AAA Charlotte for the start of the 2021 season. The hope was that the now 24-year-old would put up average or better numbers warranting his first big league call-up, but the exact opposite would happen. Blake would go 4 for 21 with 1 home run in his first 6 games at Charlotte. While he would get back on track as the season went on, it was never enough to justify an MLB debut. Now, I'm going to lump his 2021 and 2022 stats here together, because they were fairly similar, and there isn't too much to say about either season. In 2021, he slashed a .250 average, .404 slug, and .690 OPS with 11 long balls. 2022, he would show some improvement, slashing a .271 average, .428 slug, and .739 OPS with 13 long balls. This season would be Rutherford's last with Chicago, as he would elect for free agency in November of that year. 2 months later, the Nationals would sign Blake to a minor league contract and initially assign him to AAA Rochester. Clearly, something clicked this year for him, as he would split time between AA and AAA, putting up solid numbers, hitting for a .345 average and slugging .583 through his first 261 plate appearances. Impressed by the numbers, the Nats would call up Rutherford to the Bigs in August of 2023. Unfortunately, this promotion would not last, as he would strike out in 10 of his 35 at-bats, producing only 6 singles, resulting in a demotion to AAA only 24 days after he was initially called up. In October of that year, Blake would elect for free agency again, eventually being signed in April by the Kansas City Monarchs, an independent team in the American Association. This venture would be over fairly quickly, as Tijuana would purchase his contract and bring him over to the Mexican League in June. So far, Rutherford has appeared in 24 games, hitting .257 and slugging .608. Clearly, he's been able to hit for premium power in the Mexican League, however, he's been placed in the reserve list as of July 16th. And that's pretty much it regarding his career so far. So now I'm going to give you my thoughts on the situation. First, the most common question that I get asked about first rounders is he a bust? Well, yes, technically he is a bust. Being selected in the first round usually means you're expected to hold a big league roster spot at some point in your career. Despite a small stint with the Nats, Blake was never able to truly hold a roster spot at the MLB level. So what happened? Why didn't he develop into the superstar some had predicted? First of all, everyone wanted Blake to develop into a power first, contact second type of hitter. The guy you generally see in your 4 or 5 spot in the lineup. This was due to his natural pop, elite bat speed, and hard contact he was able to generate as a prep. The problem was that the ball, despite being hit plenty hard enough, rarely had the right launch angle to fly out of the park. So instead of letting his swing stay natural, hitting coaches started altering his swing path in an effort to add more loft. This of course tanked his average and often resulted in a little benefit on the power side of things. It really wasn't until the 2023 season of the Nationals minor league system that his average and slugging percentage would show well together. The obvious issue being this happened 6 seasons into his pro career, and he wasn't able to replicate it in the MLB. If this had happened earlier, I'm sure there would have been more affiliated teams interested. The other glaring issue with Blake's game was his defensive ability. Despite playing center in high school, it became quickly apparent that he did not have the speed to remain there as a pro. Right field, he definitely fit better, but his below-average arm and wavering power made it tough to justify him as a starter there at the big league level. So he would eventually end up bouncing between left field and right, but never establishing a true home at either. And we all know if your bat is worth it, they'll find a way to keep you in the lineup. But for a good portion of Rutherford's career, his bat just wasn't good enough to justify a lineup spot with his defensive issues. My personal hope for Blake is that he gets another chance at affiliated ball in 2025, and then if he can post some impressive numbers at the plate, maybe a big league team would consider calling him up and moving him to first base. I personally just don't see a path for him to the majors as an outfielder currently. Either way, as always, I hope he's able to find some success down the road, and I wish him nothing but the best. And that's pretty much it for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Comment any prospects you wish me to cover in the future, and I'm looking to post some weekly videos in the near future here as well. I do apologize for the hiatus, just had some personal stuff going on, but we'll be posting regularly again.